If you've gazed at the sky lately, you've seen myriad migrations happening. Birds headed for warmer temperatures, among other things. Here to help us understand the patterns and why this information is meaningful to us is Aaron Given, wildlife biologist for the town of Kiawah Island. And it's good to see you, Aaron.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I've seen a lot of the usual, the ducks, the geese. They're heading out of town. What else should we be looking for?
Well, right now we're in almost peak migration season for songbirds. So all the little birds in the trees and the bushes that you may not look twice at, all those birds are leaving their breeding grounds in the north, and they're heading south to their wintering grounds even in southern United States or even into South America.
It looks like there's certain birds, though, such as the cardinal, that we tend to see during certain times of the year more than others. Are those a part of the birds that tend to take off when the temperatures drop?
No, cardinals and some of our backyard birds that you may notice, the Carolina chickadees and cardinals and things like that. Those are species that are residents. They don't typically migrate, and they will stick around for the entire year.
Any other ones that stick around?
Yeah, there's Carolina wrens. We have several other species of shorebirds and other birds that you may see on the beach that will stick around year round.
And you track all of this. How do you do that?
Well, since 2009, we've been tracking migration, mainly songbird migration here on Kiawah Island. By doing that, we catch birds in these long, fine mesh nets, and we put bands on their legs. The band is a metal band. It has a unique number on it, so each bird gets kind of a social security number, if you will, so that if we catch that bird again, we'll be able to identify that bird, or if somebody else catches that bird or finds that bird someplace else, they'll also be able to report that, and we'll be able to kind of get that information and kind of learn.
It's fascinating data. What does that information tell us?
Well, we can learn a lot by catching birds. We can learn about the health of a bird. We can see how these birds are using certain habitats on the island, whether they move around a little bit or if they're staying put. We can learn how old birds live, which is actually a very important thing to learn how old birds live in order to kind of conserve some certain species that may need help. Over time, you can see trends in bird populations and see how numbers are either increasing or decreasing. So by catching lots of birds like we do every fall, we can kind of start to see different trends and see how the population increases or decreases.
Okay, well, this is a good place to take a break. When we come back, I want to ask you a couple more questions on some of the trends that you've noticed. So we're going to do that after the commercial. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We've been chatting with Aaron Given. He's a wildlife biologist for the town of Kiawah Island, and we've been talking about birds. It's important, the patterns that they create when they migrate. It tells us a lot about our environment, and you keep track of all of this, Aaron. So can you tell us a bit more about the trends that you're tending to see? Sure.
Overall, we have seen an overall decrease in the number of birds that we have been catching from year to year. We've only been doing this for 12 years, so it's a little premature to be able to kind of pinpoint why that may be happening. But overall, bird populations are decreasing across the country. In fact, there was a report that came out earlier this year that said like 450 some species of birds in North America are at risk and in need of conservation help. So,
wow.
And a lot
How
of
many
that
bird species are there? Can you give us some perspective?
In North America, there's probably well over 800 species that regularly occur.
So basically what you're saying, though, is that about half of all bird species that show up in our country are at risk?
That's right. Yep. And that's
oh, goodness.
From a lot of different reasons. Climate change is one. Pesticide use is another. That is a lot of grassland birds that live in farm country. Pesticide that's used on agriculture crops and things like that can have an impact on those species.
Wow. Now you're keeping track of them and you're doing so with a special device. How does this work?
Yeah, so this is the project that we started last year, and we focused on the painted bunting, which is a small songbird that that nests here in South Carolina, and they go south for the winter. And we're using a kind of a new technology that's been around for, maybe 8 to 10 years or less or so, called the MODIS network. And it's a network of automated radio telemetry stations. So we basically put a radio transmitter on the back of a bird's back. They wear it like a backpack. They have little loops that go around their legs, and the transmitter sits on their back.
Is it heavy?
No, they're very lightweight. It weighs less than 4% of the bird's body weight, which is what we're allowed by our permits. We can't go any heavier than that for bird safety wise.
And this is helping you further collect data?
Yeah, so we don't have to capture that bird again by doing this, because these stations, if a bird flies within about 9 miles of one of these automated receiving stations, which essentially looks like an antenna, that bird will get detected at these antennas.
Just along the coast of this country, about how many receiving stations are there?
There are 9 along South Carolina's coast, and we can learn about how fast that bird goes from point A to point B, how long it stays in a certain area. We can identify maybe certain important habitats that bird may need during its migration journey. And then ultimately, once it gets to its wintering destination, we can learn about where that bird may actually end up.
Aaron, that is such fascinating information. I want to thank you so much for sharing that with us. We take these things for granted, and you've really given us some good insight and why we all need to be preservationists in our own right. Aaron, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're back after this.